everybody, this is Perch, and here's a viewer message that I think is a good one. I've heard this one several times, so it's a good viewer question, good thing to talk about, and you'll see how it fits a lot of the things that I've been saying in other videos. So I'm probably giving away a little bit of my point of view of how these things should work. But let's get to it. It says, "Hey Perch, hope you're well." Can't complain. I mean, I could, but I'd just sound like a douche if I did. I met up with a friend recently who believes that the reason American mainstream comics are failing is because of manga success in the West. I think we've all heard that theory quite a bit. Though she also believes, and this is where this question gets interesting, she also believes that this is unfair because when she was in Japan, forgot to ask when, she couldn't find any Western comics translated over there, like Persepolis and so on. She could find Asterix and Tintin. Those are comparably more popular worldwide. And Black Sad seems to have already made a positive impression over there. Absolutely. What are your thoughts on this, as well as the view that part of why there isn't much of a market for Western comics in Japan compared to a growing market for shonen manga in Anglo-speaking countries, let alone France and Spanish-speaking countries where manga is already intensely popular and accepted, is due to Japanese xenophobia? I don't think that's the case, but we'll get to it in a second. No idea what the market currently is for Marvel and DC comics over movies in Japan, though. I know Watsuki loved X-Men and gushed about meeting Jin Lee. Kind regards. Okay, good question. I don't think xenophobia is it at all. Now, that's been used as an excuse at times, but I really don't think so. And I think it's easily disproven with one simple thing. The Deadpool manga is doing very well over there, and the movies have done well over there. I mean, as well, they haven't done U.S. market well, but look at the market of Japan to U.S. The box office market from Japan to U.S. is not one-to-one or anywhere close to it. How people consume their media, what people do, how they go to theaters, everything else. I mean, it's nothing is going to do as well in Japan as in the U.S. from a movie perspective, just by its sheer market. But if you take into account the size of the market and you right size things, then you'll see that there's plenty of interest in U.S. superheroes over in Japan, but they've got to be packaged and delivered in a way that the Japanese market can accept them. And the biggest challenge to this is that there has not been a good concerted effort to basically humble. And I think that is it. If you're going to do business in Japan, you have to realize kind of one thing. The Japanese marketplace insists that you fit it, that you do not make it fit you. A classic example of this is when Microsoft first put out the Xbox. They basically were relying on this idea that Microsoft, a brand that had been accepted in the Japanese market, by the way, for things like Office and Windows and PC software and everything else. Microsoft had done fine over there. It was as if the company had forgotten what it had to do in order to achieve that market, though. And so they go to Japan and they basically say, "Here's the Xbox, you will buy it." And what they neglected to pay attention to is that on every front, from the physical form factor of the controllers to how the thing was packaged to the games that were out at launch to everything else, it didn't meet the Japanese market. It felt, I would say disrespectful, but that's probably about right. It felt disrespectful to the marketplace. It felt like, here's this thing, you're going to accept, people buy it. And Japan wants the product tailored to their needs, and I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. If you look at what, particularly France, French comics and European comics in general have done when they've gone into the Japanese market, they adjust the form factor of the book, they print it in a size that fits in with the existing shelves, and it works. I remember that Marvel, I think DC as well, but I know Marvel for a fact, they go into the Japanese market with the same trade format, and the attitude was, well, they'll like this better. They'll discover that they like this size format better rather than this tiny little tankobon sized graphic novel, and they'll appreciate the color and the paper and everything else. And just to be fair about it, by the way, Japan's had that same problem in coming to the U.S. Japanese JRPGs and other games have often misunderstood that some of the meticulous care that Japan gives to things like the graphic design of the characters and the detailed storyline. A lot of the U.S. audience couldn't care less about those things, or at least they didn't at the time, and so they struggled as well bringing product in. But in comics, I mean, look, if you've ever seen a Japanese bookstore or a place where manga is sold or these tankobon books are sold, it's a very, compact, very dense amount of books. They cram, thousands and thousands of books into a fairly small footprint of a space. And so if you're going to go in there and say, yeah, take our comic, it's got to be this size and it's going to fit, it's twice the size or one and a half size. So bluntly, there's not even shelf space for this stuff. And then when the spine makes no sense, I mean, it's a product that has not bothered. And now to be fair, at times the U.S. market has tried to adapt the products to fit, but they've done it as if they could not care less. They use cheap translators. They use materials that just do not fit at all, and so they had bad results. And when they had bad results, the attitude back to the office was, see, this market doesn't care about our stuff. The Japanese market will never accept U.S. superheroes. So never going to work. Forget it. Let's just forget it. We're just it's not worth our time. And so they walk away, forgetting that there is a very healthy market. In fact, if Marvel or DC or some of these companies want to really pop their numbers, getting into that market would be, they want the characters. They're happy to take it. They're not going to change everything that they are in terms of how they sell, how they distribute, how they package in order to cram this stuff in. They'll just do with less. And that's what you see. There is zero reason, absolutely zero reason why it has to be this way. In fact, I mean, in my view, it's stubbornness. It's just we're going to do it our way, and our way is the only way, and tough. That's how it comes across. I think that, as we've talked about on this channel many times before, I think people get ideas into their head about how things just are, and they don't budge from it. And that's really what's going on. I think it's literally that simple. Going into Japan, I mean, Japan is a tough market. It's one of the tougher global markets to penetrate. You have to think differently. You have to lead with a different type of value proposition. You have to I don't want to say humble, but what's going to work for that market matters, not what you think matters. You have to adapt to them. Some companies just don't have that in their DNA. I think that Marvel will always struggle with that idea, the idea that, they need to listen rather than tell. I think that's been a challenge for that company for many, many years in the U.S. as well. Now, you talk to any retailer, they will tell you that, working with Marvel is not a treat. And so, they they don't enjoy it. I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of money to be made there. I think there's a great market that could be had, but it's going to require some very different thinking, and it's going to require some humility. And bluntly, I think these companies have just kind of convinced themselves that it's not worth the effort, that it's too hard, too impossible, can't be done. And as long as they think that way, then they're correct. It can't be done. But it's money just waiting to be grabbed if somebody would go take it. But that's my opinion on it. I can say with 100% authority, there is interest in those characters. I think people definitely have an affinity in Japan for US-based superheroes. I think the superhero genre is very healthy over in Japan, as well as many others. And all it takes is somebody to put some focus on it. But that's my opinion. It's a great question. Thanks for writing it in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.